Hey, welcome to the Sunday preview for this third Sunday in Advent, and we have a reading from the Gospel of Matthew about St. John the Baptist. And it says, when John the Baptist heard in prison of the works of the Christ, he sent his disciples to Jesus with this question, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?" Jesus said to them in reply, "Go and tell John what you see and hear. The blind regain their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news proclaimed to them. And blessed is the one who takes no offense at me." As they were going off, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the desert to see? A reed swayed by the wind? Then what did you go out to see? Someone dressed in fine clothing? Those who wear fine clothing are in royal palaces. Then why did you go out? To see a prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'Behold, I am sending my messenger before you. He will prepare your way.' Amen, I say, among those born of woman, there has been none greater than John the Baptist. Yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." The Gospel of the Lord. John at this point now is in prison for having denounced King Herod and his adultery and treachery against his brother and taking his wife Herodias. So John is going to be executed. And the gospel tells us that Jesus began his ministry publicly after John was arrested. So John, after preaching faithfully about the coming of the kingdom, and now has to reckon with the fact that what he hears from reports in prison, that Jesus is a very different style, at least, that he's preaching mercy and he's healing and forgiving, where John's role was different. He was to prepare the way of the Lord. And so it seems like there's a little bit of a question in John's mind whether Jesus is really the Messiah or perhaps just another prophet. And so he sends those two disciples out to Jesus to ask. And Jesus answers by quoting the prophet Isaiah from the Old Testament about what to look for in the Messiah. And the deaf hear, the dumb speak, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news preached to them. So don't be scandalized by me. John has to give way and recognize that he was just preparing the way for the greater one. And he also needs to recognize, like we do, is that Jesus doesn't fit into the box that we have for him. That maybe John's preconceptions about the Messiah, although they were deep and insightful and powerful, were not everything the Messiah is, because we can't limit God. And we have to allow Jesus in our lives too to do the unexpected things. And maybe all those curveballs that we face in life are not so much arguments against Jesus, but just could open us up to how deep and marvelous and different Christ is. God's unpredictable, and we have to be ready and open to the Spirit to be able to recognize Christ. I think that's very much a good preparation for Christmas, because nobody expected the Messiah to come in a little town in Bethlehem, born in a stable, born to two poor Nazareans. And nobody expected the way the Messiah was going to come into the world. And we have to be ready for God to do things differently than we predict. After all, he's God. He's infinitely greater than we are in his wisdom and in his love. So let's get ready for Christmas by waiting and being ready for whatever God manifests to us.